In this lesson, I want to talk about some creative uses of the minor pentatonic scale whenever you're improvising over minor chords. And for most of us bass players, we have a basic understanding of what the minor pentatonic scale is. You've probably seen the pattern before where you play this particular fingering. If I'm starting on a root, let's say C, and I'm playing the minor pentatonic scale from C, the notes in that would be C, E flat, F, G, B flat, and C. Okay, so a good basic fingering for that is if you put your first finger on the root C and you take up a two-note per string approach to the fingering, your span of your fingers basically are going to be in a one finger per fret approach. And you'd play the fingering 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 3. All right, C minor pentatonic scale. Now functionally what we're playing are the notes root, which is 1, the flat 3, the 4, the 5, the flat 7, and then the octave if we're playing a one octave form. Okay, so the function of the notes is what really gives them relevance to the chord that we're playing over. And what a lot of us are already used to is the idea of matching up the minor pentatonic scale with corresponding minor chords. So in other words, let's say that you were playing a groove, a bass line, or an improvised solo for that matter. If you were playing over a C minor chord, you could use the C minor pentatonic scale to complement that particular chord and play what we would call, inside the chord change. All right. So an example of what that sounds like is this. It's very inside. It sounds very, very safe, and it's also very what I would call root centric, in that you hear that the pivot point for the idea is really centered around the actual root of the chord. But this is an example of improvising using the C minor pentatonic scale over a C minor chord. Okay, so that gives you a good basic idea of what I would consider the most basic use of that scale in an improvisational setting. Now, one of the things that I try to find whenever I'm looking to create new approaches, new tonalities, new implied colors, is to look at different places to start a form from. In other words, displacing the starting point of the scale or musical component to start from a different location relative to the chord to imply a different mood or a different color. With the minor pentatonic scale, we can do this in a couple different new locations. The first example I'm going to show you is moving the minor pentatonic scale starting point to the 5th of the chord. Okay, so we're still going to be dealing with this C minor chord, C minor sound. But instead of playing the C minor pentatonic scale, starting on the C, of course, we're actually going to play the G minor pentatonic scale, starting from the G. So it's the same shape, and functionally it's the same structure, but now we're, of course, going to be playing different notes, keeping in line with how they would sit within the G minor pentatonic scale. So the notes of the G minor pentatonic scale are G, B flat, C, D, F, and G. Okay, so once again, same shape, but displaced to a new starting location. So we're starting the minor pentatonic scale from the 5 of C. The root of the chord is still C, but we're starting from the 5 of C. And I want to show you the different sound that it has over top this same C minor 7 background track. Notes of G minor pentatonic scale. Okay, so what we need to do now is look at the function of each of these notes relative to this C minor chord. So we're still playing over the same chord, but the notes that we're playing now are going to be functionally different than what they were starting on C. Starting on the G, with that minor pentatonic shape, we're starting with the 5, of course, right? Then the next note, B flat, that's the flat 7. The C is the root, of course. The D is the 2nd or the 9th, all right? And then the F is the 4th or the 11th, and then we start back again at G. So once again, functionally what we're playing when we play minor pentatonic from G is we're playing the 5, flat 7, root, 2 or 9, and then 4 or 11, okay? So now I want to play an example of what it sounds like improvising using the G minor pentatonic scale over the C minor chord. Okay, so as you can see, it has a different flavor to it, a slightly different color. So the mood of what you're playing changes, and that's what's so cool about this is now we're taking that small 5-note scale, and it's like we're casting new light on top of this chord. All right, so I'm going to show you one more idea like that. It's another displacement idea. We're going to take that same minor pentatonic scale, but this time we're going to start it from the D. Okay, so relative to C, which is the root of our C minor chord, we're going to be starting on the 2 instead, because D is the 2 of C. So when we play the D minor pentatonic scale, we have the notes D, F, G, A, and C. Okay, functionally what we're playing now are the 2 or the 9, the 4 or the 11, the 5, the 6 or the 13, and then the root before we start back over again at the 2. Okay, so this is going to have a slightly different color as well. And to me, out of all three of them, this is the one that really kind of sounds the most interesting. Okay, so here's what it sounds like improvising using the D minor pentatonic scale over a C minor chord. All right, so there you go, 3 different colors from 3 different minor pentatonic scales. Now, the theory behind what's happening here is maybe not quite as important as the way it sounds and internalizing these sounds to actually become part of your vocabulary and your improvisation. However, it's good to kind of understand what's going on. If you look at each of these minor pentatonic scales, they all contain particular chord tones that, as I sort of look at it, imply a particular chord color or tonality. With the regular C minor pentatonic scale, essentially what we're playing is just a C minor 7 arpeggio, but with a fourth degree added, okay? Because we have a 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. So a minor 7 arpeggio would just have our 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7, 1. So we have all 4 of those notes plus the fourth degree, right? So it's really giving us, more than anything, it's implying just a straight C minor 7 type of sound, which is why I said before, it's very pivotal, root centric. It sounds very much based around the note C. If you look at the G minor pentatonic scale and what we're actually playing, we're starting with the 5. So we have a 5 and a flat 7, okay? Then we have a root, a 9, and an 11 before we start back over again. So we have the 5 and the flat 7, both are chord tones from a C minor 7 arpeggio. We have the root there. And then we have the 9, which is an extended chord tone above the flat 7 of the minor 7 chord. Okay, so that's giving us the 9. And then we have the 11. Well, what this is actually implying, we're playing 5, flat 7, 9, and 11. That's the upper structure of a C minor 11 chord. And if you don't understand this theory, that's totally okay. But some of you out there might be curious about, where are these sounds coming from? So that's, to me, when you're playing, the G minor pentatonic scale over the C minor chord, you're very much implying a C minor 11 type of sound, okay? Which is a slightly more sophisticated minor sound than just a regular C minor 7 chord. And then the last one, the D minor pentatonic, if you look at how it's built, we've got the 9 and the 11, okay? So both of those are 2 notes that came from the upper structure of the minor 11 chord I was just describing. So we've got 9 and 11. We've got our 5, which is a chord tone from the C minor 7 chord as well. And then we've got the 6 or the 13. And this is kind of, to me, what makes the D minor pentatonic scale idea sound so interesting is having that 6 or 13. That is a note that's a very significant tone that's found in the C dorian mode. Okay, so that's the sixth note in the C dorian mode. All right, so that has, to me, that has special significance there. And then we've got the root, of course, and then we start back over again. So we're blending elements of that, that minor 11 sound and that Dorian sound in there. And these are just keep in mind, these are very general ways to look at this when we're trying to basically piece together the elements to imply a particular tonality. And I want to say there are different ways to look at this, but this is kind of how I personally approach each of these individual ideas. Here's what's really interesting, is that when you take the notes of the C minor pentatonic scale, the D minor pentatonic scale, and the G minor pentatonic scale, you put all of those together, they include all of the tones that are found in the C Dorian mode. So those of you that are familiar with the idea of using the Dorian mode as an improvisational choice over a minor or minor 7 chord will understand that each of these minor pentatonic scales is really just a subgroup or a subset of that full Dorian mode. And that, to me, is really cool, because what that does is that opens up the door for you to work with sort of what could be interpreted as hybrid approaches, where you're actually combining these different scales together. And that's what I'm going to demonstrate next. You can get some great sounding ideas, some really angular sounding ideas out of the combination of these 3 different minor pentatonic scales. So now I'm going to play an example of improvising over this same C minor chord, but using elements of C minor pentatonic, D minor pentatonic, and G minor pentatonic. Okay, so that's all three of them used in, as I said, like a hybrid fashion. So the thing I just kind of want to sum all this stuff up with is I want to make the point that what's the great thing about minor pentatonic scales is that when you use them in this sort of context, you're really only having to keep one particular concept or shape under your fingers. And if you know at least one form for the minor pentatonic scale, just to get started, you can move that form all over and capture these different sounds. Now, those of you that are looking at expanding this further are going to want to learn the different shapes and patterns that start from each individual degree of the minor pentatonic scale. So what that means is that you're going to have a different fingering starting on each respective scale degree. So I would have my fingering for minor pentatonic. Let's say that we're working with the C minor pentatonic scale again. I'm going to have my fingering that starts from the C, from the 1. Then I'll have a fingering that starts from the flat 3. Then I'll have a fingering that starts from the 4. Then another fingering that starts from the 5. Then another one that starts from the flat 7. And then you're back to the beginning again, starting from the root. So that's something that you can definitely explore on your own, but you don't have to have those down pat in order to go ahead and get started with experimenting with these concepts. So I hope you'll enjoy working on these, and I hope it opens up a lot of neat doors for you improvisationally.